Epicor Eclipse Simplified, where every topic is broken down into a bite-sized chunk. Let's dive in. If your company utilizes the radio frequency warehouse management package that Eclipse offers and you are going to be working in the warehouse, there are a few key details you need to know to rock your job from day one. The first thing you will want to know is that there is a lot of work that has already been done on the back end to make sure your first day goes smooth, and there are a lot of things you can and should take for granted. For example, which orders are the most important to pick first? What is the most efficient picking order for each ticket? If you have the same item in multiple locations, which location is the best location to pull from? And if a product comes in that is already sold, where do we put it for fast access? All these settings are already programmed into the system to help make your job easier, faster, and more efficient. You must follow the path to find the warehouse process status queue and add it to your widgets. This should be on your home screen. You are literally going to use this every day of your job. When you open this queue, make a note of what operation you're looking at. You will want to set this to all so that you can see picking, receiving, and replenishments all in one view. If you do, this becomes a to-do list. If this queue is not empty, your primary goal is to empty it. Side note, these columns will look different on your system than mine. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'll show you a few ways that I customize this. One of the things I love about the status queue is if you right click on a line, you can see more information. And in fact, this warehouse and process queue that I have highlighted is very similar to the other warehouse queue that you can save as a widget. But to be honest, I don't really use that widget because right clicking within the status queue provides the detailed information I need. Plus it also allows me to change the ship via and the ship date all from one location. But enough about solar, let's dive into what you've been waiting for, using the RF scanners in the warehouse. Whoa, man, what's this blue screen? Where's the GUI? Well, the fact is, the warehouse system does have an Android interface with the graphical user interface you expect of mobile devices. But there are still a lot of warehouses that use these guns with the blue screen just because the software is rock solid. The good thing for you is, if you take these few minutes to understand the logic of an RF warehouse, it doesn't matter what device you're handed. Both the new Android scanners and the old Windows scanners will make sense, and you will be able to use either device. So if we narrow our focus down to the top 80% of your time spent in the warehouse, it's really just these 6 menu paths. But if you really understand the picking paths, then everything else will make even more sense. Picking is the first step to getting the product out of the building, and it'll be your main picking tool. Quick pick is almost the same thing as picking, the only difference is when it's used. Okay, let's do a deep dive into the picking menu path and process. If you stay with me here, you'll be able to do almost everything else on the scanners. Every screen can be divided into sections, and if you take a moment to see where the cursor is, you will quickly identify the next step needed in the process. The top of the screen will always tell you what process you're in, whether you should be picking an item, entering a serial number, receiving, etc. Always look up here first if you're unsure what to do next. In the top middle, you will have the product information, part numbers, descriptions, etc. And if the cursor is here, the system's wanting you to scan a product barcode. In the lower middle is the location and quantity information. The system wants to know where you got it from and how many you took. The bottom always has submenus. Those allow you to dive a bit deeper. You can access those by typing Control plus whatever letter is highlighted. Here you can see we are in the picking menu path. It might have this message on the screen too. Let's hit Control and S to select an order to pick. Here you'll see the list of orders that'll mirror the list on the solar status queue we talked about earlier. You can narrow down to the order you want and then hit Enter to put an asterisk next to the order and select that for picking. Once you hit Enter on a line and select that order, you may see the shipping instructions pop up. They may show up here or when you stage the ticket, depending on your team's setup. Just hit Enter or Escape to clear the window. With your order now selected, hit the Escape key and go back a screen. First, the cursor's in the top middle section, so we scan the part's barcode. Then, we move to the lower middle section. Before scanning your location tag, note the quantity needed. Make sure you have all you need here. If you have all 6, you scan the location tag. If the part you scan has a serial number, this screen will pop up and you simply scan the serial number to enter it and hit Escape to go back to the previous screen. You may or may not have to verify the quantity picked based on how your system is set up, but if you do, enter the quantity, and if you don't, you won't see the screen. So let's pause this process and let's look at another scenario. I just told you to make sure you had 6 before scanning the location, right? But what happens if the system says to pull 6 and you can only find 5? In that case, after scanning the product, but before you scan the location, use the Control-T hotkey to change the quantity. Enter the quantity of 5 that you were able to find. Type S and hit enter. Type Y to back order the item and press enter again. You will then be back to the location section and need to scan the location so the system knows where you pulled the product from. Okay, so we scanned the location and verified the quantity. Now we have to put it in a tote. Why? Great question. I'm glad you asked. This is because Eclipse always wants to know where every product is, even if it's in the middle of a process. You need to tell the system which cart you are putting the order on so that if you were to stop pulling the product in the middle of an order, you can leave it as it is and someone else would know what's going on and be able to pick up where you left off. After you enter the tote on the last item of the order, you come back to this screen. Knowing you just completed an order and it's still sitting in that tote, you now have to give the product a final resting place. You do that by staging the item. So press Control and G. You could arrow down here, but I always hit enter twice on this screen just because it's quicker, and you go down a row and select the row. At that point, you need to tell the system where you are putting this as you wait for the customer to come pick it up or as you wait for your driver to make the delivery. Note how you package the order and the quantity of each. This will determine how many labels you are about to print as you press Control and L for labels. You can see that the label count automatically gets transferred here. Then you press Control and P to print the labels. This brings you back to the staging screen. Press Control C to close the ticket and go grab your labels from the printer and affix them to your item. Now we're back to our pick screen and you can select another order. Now, I realize that may seem like a long process because I went through a few variables, but I assure you that picking is a fast process. An order with just one item on it can be selected, picked, and staged in less than a minute, no problem. Now, let's hit escape and go back to the main menu. Quick Pick is meant for rush orders that must be completed immediately. It is the same process as picking. The difference is when you use it. For example, let's say you're in the picking path we just talked about and pulling a 30-line item order that needs to be shipped out later in the day. You're on line 15 when a new customer walks into the counter and requests a single item that they need immediately. Quick Pick allows you to leave the current order you are working on where it is. You just hit escape on your gun and go back to the main menu. Select Quick Pick and complete the new rush order just like any other order. When you're done, you go back to the picking path and jump right back into line 16 of the big order you were working on before without ever missing a beat. I did promise a bit of a deeper dive into the warehouse status queue. As with all solar windows, if you click on that spyglass on the right, you can change this view and even create your own custom view. In fact, you can get even more customized by pulling your own column data and showing fields that were not even in the original Eclipse package. Here are 3 I created based on the ledger file. Eclipse stores them. I just pulled them out so that I could see them. They show us the writer of the ticket, the outside salesperson, and the ship to city. And the last one I'll show you is this one I built that called the first line of the ledger attribute number 74. But again, you don't need to know how to do this. I simply want to give you a hint of what was possible because it opens the door to new ways of thinking. And if you ask smart questions that lead to new ideas, you will help everyone on your team and everyone wins. Please do note our disclaimer and do not get yourself into trouble by trying to do something you have not been trained to do by your own company. We always encourage you to ask questions early and often.